Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about this ongoing winter storm that is currently taking place across the central United States. It has dropped already a lot of snow across portions of Nebraska, South Dakota, obviously the western states as well. It's not fully done yet. I would say one more day of this. This is probably going to be my last video about this. It will still have impacts well into potentially the late week and even the weekend across the Northeast, but the impacts will be so minimal that other bigger threats that are currently going on across the West will probably take the headlines. So I guess that's good news for those folks that are across the Northeast. That doesn't mean not as big of an impact for you across the Northeast, but again, we still have obviously a severe weather risk that is running very high, a snowfall threat that is still going to be occurring across the north central United States again for the next 24-hour-ish before wrapping up. And then we have a new beast of a system moving into the west, so I want to inform folks about that as well. Obviously, skip to your region in the video where you want to see about your states. If you live in Kansas, you probably don't really care what happens across the Northeast, so that's why I divided the videos into several regions. So use a scroll bar to click through it and find a chapter labeled with your region, or go to the description box below and click on the blue numbers next to your labeled region. Okay, so yeah, this system has been incredible. I mean, today literally in my area, it was the warmth was rather muted for me, but that was because of a lake breeze. But we had a thunderstorm that dropped hail here. It was non-damaging hail, so thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, it was a January thunderstorm. Definitely something. This system had a lot of extremes with it. I mean, from the heavy rain to the extreme snow, the incredible amount of moisture pummeled into the far north of the country. Just incredible. And I want to show you some of this before I start dividing this into regions, because I think this is something that everyone watching could see that it's pretty interesting. So some of the snowfall amounts were rather incredible. If you recall, there were some speculations that maybe some areas could see over 2 feet of snow. And look at that. In South Dakota, Lake Andes got 27 inches. That is insane. I mean, that is an incredible amount of snow. Obviously, that was rather isolated for the most part. It was within the heavier axis, 12 to 18 inches. There were quite a few locations that did get up to 20. And then a broader 6 to 12 inch event you could see up through Minnesota. Minneapolis, you got around 4 so far. There still will be additional snowfall. And then if you extend these snowfall reports, so it includes the western United States and what these areas got, I mean, some of these 44 inches and maybe even 72 hours out. Okay, yeah, you can see right there those heavy amounts. Incredible snow swath from this system. Again, maybe more limited for the central United States, but Nebraska, South Dakota, and westward, incredible. All right, let's start dividing this into several regions. So the Northwest, you guys have been done with the system for a while, actually, and you can see that again. Here's the storm; it's ongoing. You guys are done. You've been dealing with already precipitation from other storms, and you will continue. So let's zoom in onto the Northwest and start going into a little bit of detail here. Notice that you guys are going to be generally quiet into the day today or the rest of tonight, but tomorrow there will be a bigger storm that moves into Oregon, Washington during the day, especially later on in the day and into Thursday. Again, mainly the coastal areas getting impacted by this, but this is a monster. Look at those winds, 967 millibars, very strong winds. Obviously, there will be precipitation that reaches many areas here along the coastline, especially again into Thursday. You can see on Friday some snow spreading into Nevada, Idaho, Montana, maybe Wyoming. Not terribly widespread as this system's coming from the southwest, so like mountains like the Sierra and the Wasatch, they kind of pick up a lot of that snow and don't have much precipitation. The storm doesn't have much precipitation further back once it reaches the mountains here, as a lot of that gets kind of squeezed out by the shore, the coastline mountains. But do notice that there's going to be several of these systems. You can see that into Saturday of this week, a new one comes in, more precipitation across especially the coastal states of the Northwest and southwestern Canada there. Again, not too much far inland, but again, depending on which model you look at, there's some fluctuations there. And you can see that it's just storm after storm. Literally, it's an incredible pattern, a historic pattern, you could say, especially during La Nina. Some of these areas will be picking up an absolute inordinate amount of precipitation in the form of rain and snow, especially across the southwest, but the northwest as well. You can see many areas here picking up, amounts that are 2-5 inches plus, especially here, potentially across British Columbia. Do note, though, that what catches the eye is Northern California, so those areas will obviously see a ton. That's why I mean the Northwest not maybe, you know, getting the brunt of this as the Southwest will be. Still, you're seeing a lot of activity. You can see Idaho, Montana, Wyoming still picking up some snow. Eastern areas of those states, not too much. You can see Alberta picking up a little bit. And again, I'm just showing you the precipitation map. Let's convert this into snow. So again, these areas will still be picking up precip, just rain, and the snow map just shows snow. You can see the range is definitely still picking up a decent amount of snow, especially the ones that are further exposed off into the ocean here across British Columbia. Definitely could be potentially some, you know, really incredible amounts of snow. Though you could see the Grand Tetons, the Bitterroot, getting on some again, decent snowfall to say the least. If you look at the models like the European, which again is a kind of a contender with the GFS, they're always in disagreement or sometimes in agreement. It also shows a very active pattern, and if you look at its total quantitative precipitation forecast through 240 hours, which is, I want to note, a bit less than what the GFS goes out to. The European actually shows a bit more precipitation for, say, coastline Washington, Oregon, maybe a bit less though towards eastern Montana and Wyoming. And in terms of the total snowfall, again, we're also obviously because of how high those precipitation amounts are, there is going to be a lot of it. I would say though, again, maybe a bit less across the interior areas, because it seems like these next few systems won't be hitting the interior areas as hard, but the storms that could potentially occur maybe a week or two from now, which the GFS shows in its longer range view, the European doesn't, and that's why the amounts are slightly less there. Overall, still very active pattern. Again, from the system that the title is calling, you know, the big storm, you guys are done with that one. Still, in your world, you know, you guys are going to be dealing with many other big systems. Let's go on to the Southwestern United States, as this is another area that is going to be actually probably the biggest area that's going to be, not the biggest, but the area that's going to be most impacted by this ongoing extreme pattern. So again, as I mentioned for the Northwest, you guys are done with the current system that the title is talking about. That's still across the central United States, but you guys are dealing already, you dealt with one system already yesterday. Again, that system that is currently across the Central Plains, literally, you're just past your guys' locations maybe 2 or 3 days ago. So this pattern is literally on fire, and we have a very, very significant rainstorm for the lower elevations moving in, and a pretty significant snowstorm for the higher elevations moving in as early as tomorrow. Notice Nevada, California getting absolutely pounded, and this thing continues well into the day on Friday, providing snow into Nevada, Utah, again Arizona, Colorado. You can see that across the more eastern states here, Utah, Colorado, the snow is obviously still falling. It's a bit more tame though compared to what could be going on across California. We could be looking at some historic pattern, and unfortunately it's just going to be too much rain. There's already problems with flooding and whatnot. There's already loss of life, and that will continue. I mean, look, because once this system passes, another one comes through, potentially even more impactful in terms of rain and snow. Nevada, Utah also picking up on some snowfall, not targeting the Southwest as much for now, but you can see with some of the later storms, eventually we do see more of a shift back to the Southwest. So potentially around a week, a bit more than a week out from right now, you can see more precipitation getting in maybe towards the Southwest right there, boom, across Arizona, New Mexico. It's far out, but the thing is that the pattern looks hyperactive, and as long as there's a flow of the Pacific, obviously individual storms are going to vary between models, but the fact is that there's probably going to be some sort of a system. Again, the exact tracks are still a little bit unknown and strengths, but still, I mean, you can see some of these things are so expansive. The amount of snow that especially California mountains will pick up and the amount of rain that the valleys will pick up is incredible. But again, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, you guys are still going to be seeing impacts from this. And again, as far as the model goes, 384 hours, we are still seeing new storms moving in, which is just incredible. Total snowfall accumulations, get ready for this because this is kind of astounding. Look at the Sierra Nevada here. Incredible amounts, incredible. There's already way more than average snowfall there. So this is good in terms of the reservoir, the long-term impacts, but the short-term, it's going to get chaotic. Nevada also picking up good amounts of snow. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. You know, not as significant as California, still a significant overall pattern for you guys. Again, the thing is that the whole West here is very active. It's just that California is hyperactive. active with all those numbers that are potentially, again, well into the triple digits into snowfall accumulations and total accumulated precip. I mean, if you were to drag a cursor over this and it were to show you the exact amounts, I mean, based off judging the color, I mean, yeah, potentially 16, 20 inches of liquid precip falling across some of these areas. So you can see how this flooding becomes an issue. Further westward, more tame amounts. Still, that's kind of a lot of precipitation. 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall across such broad mountain ranges. Not rainfall, precip, so this will fall as snow, obviously. It's good news for the reservoirs. The reservoirs have been absolutely skyrocketing with their waters, especially across California, Lake Oroville, Shasta Dam, Shasta Lake. But then Lake Mead, a little less of an increase. That usually happens from runoff in the spring. Still, though, this is obviously very beneficial in the long range, but in the short term, this is just too much. And you can see that the European also shows through 240 hours very significant snows across these areas, and the precipitation is also pretty darn incredible across some of these areas, potentially, again, 16, 18 inches. And if you were to look at the GFS, which I just showed you, but on here I could actually drag the cursor over and show you some of these amounts, they're going to be nothing short of incredible. Look at 23, 24. Again, you know, this may be a little bit too far out to see 20 inches and confirm that that will happen. But based on what we've been seeing, double-digit amounts of rainfall, additional rainfall is pretty much expected. Now, how far do those go? Again, you know, stay tuned for details. So that's that for the Southwest. You know, stay tuned. Obviously, I'll give you guys more updates on this weather pattern as it's truly incredible. The North Central United States, unlike the West, are not done with this system. This thing is still brewing, and you can see that already a lot of snow did fall, as I was showing you guys earlier. The snowfall accumulations across some of these areas, and especially across Nebraska, northeastern Nebraska, and southwestern South Dakota were incredible. I mean, we saw amounts that were potentially or close to, yeah, even 30 inches. They're well over 2 feet. And Minneapolis, you guys are currently seeing snowfall that it ranges anywhere from 4 to 6, depending on where exactly you guys are. And there still will be additional snow. So notice there are advisories and warnings still up in place. The current radar isn't really filled in, but if you were to look at the next few hours based on model guidance, let's take a look at the HER model. You can see that Minneapolis gets back into some snow as this low pressure kind of begins to kind of re-intensify as a, not maybe into a new storm, but it kind of starts backspinning and a new feature develops. You can see by 7 a.m. there could still be very well snowing across Minnesota into Wisconsin. It's still raining. You can see thunder showers further south. Again, most of the rain for these areas across Indiana, Chicago, Illinois, it's mainly done, I would say. However, you know, don't be caught off guard if you do still see some thunderstorms or whatnot, thunder showers or just some drizzle, as this system is kind of dragging its feet with its movements. Do note, though, another big change I want to address is there's going to be cold air moving in. Let's take a look at the thermometer readings. Notice that there's going to be cold air coming in from the west. Very warm day for many today across the Midwest, especially southern parts, Indiana, Ohio, even, you know, Michigan. Well, it was in the upper 30s. That's pretty warm. It's not necessarily cold, especially for January. And do note, though, the next few days, we won't see barbaric cold air, but a lot more seasonal cold air moving in, staying, you know, I would say much colder towards the north of that snowfall. But yeah, notice that well into the day tomorrow, there could still be snow regurgitating. I find that's the best word. Across Minnesota, the UP, you can see some sort of a band develops as this system tries to re-intensify into maybe a new one. So again, northern Michigan also picking up a little bit of snow. Again, just kind of this activity that's a little hard to predict on a radar and how it'll exactly behave. But do note that the total snowfall just through tomorrow 7 p.m. I mean, if you're seeing 5-6 inches across the Twin Cities, Minnesota, western Minnesota right now, you guys could potentially see easily another amount of that. Notice even north of you guys, there could be 7-8 inches. The UP also picking up a little bit. Snow showers maybe across Iowa, northern Iowa picking up a little bit of snow as well. Northern Michigan and into southern Canada here into southern Ontario picking up a little bit of that snowfall as well. Let's take a look at the GFS. You can see the GFS forecast is a little bit more robust through that time frame. I would say it's probably a little bit too extreme with some of those snowfall amounts. However, I wouldn't be surprised to see some areas, you know, pick up maybe even an additional foot if we do see some banding going on with this right there. And do note that this eventually does leave you guys by late Wednesday into early Thursday, pivoting through Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan with some snow showers, with again gradually cooler air working in. However, there could be another system during the weekend. That could provide some, again, maybe warm air towards the very far south here, as it provides a little bit of snow into central Indiana, Ohio. That's something to watch for as well. So I know I have folks from Ohio, Indiana watching. You could see some snow potentially on Saturday, so that's something to watch for. So that is that, though. Again, predominantly the system's over, but we still have a few more days, and again, some areas, like especially the Twin Cities and northwestern Wisconsin, just northern Wisconsin, the UP, northern Michigan could still see quite a bit of additional snowfall. Let's go on to the south central United States. Again, you guys are predominantly done with this system as well, depending on where you classify as being the south central United States, because right now there is still a severe weather threat going on across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, but that's at that point maybe, especially Alabama, more to the southeast, but still, notice that in the next few hours of this recording, there will be some nasty storms evolving across Mississippi, Louisiana, areas that have already picked up quite a bit of that heavy rainfall. So this will obviously add insult to injury, especially if there's already standing, water on roadways and whatnot. Notice Tennessee, Kentucky also potentially getting clipped by that. Maybe cities like Nashville, Memphis, you should be fine. But yeah, Lexington, Kentucky, maybe seeing some even showers out of this into the coming overnight. So that's definitely something to watch for. But do note that by tomorrow, really early in the morning, if you're watching this from the south on Wednesday, you guys are pretty much done with the system at that point. It's just really the overnight that we have left. And again, there will be some cooler air gradually working in here. Not bitter cold air, just more seasonable. Still probably staying slightly above average. Total accumulated precipitation, obviously limited towards the south here, where we will see those thunderstorms. Again, some of these are going to be pretty powerful. They're already exploding here, and they have obviously very incredible rainfall rates because of how much moisture this thing has. So, if you get caught in under one of these bands that, again, is kind of moving not progressively, and if it gets stuck, Baton Rouge right there about to get under a pretty heavy band of rain, that could definitely exaggerate some of the flooding issues to quite an extreme there. So that's definitely something I wanted to address. Let's move on to the Northeast, as this is an area that really is still dealing with the kind of the beginning impacts of this thing. However, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this system will be significantly kind of will be kind of weakening as it approaches these areas. So notice on the radar right now for the Northeast, you guys are dealing with mainly rain. However, there will be some snow that begins to appear, especially across in northern Vermont and New Hampshire. New Hampshire and New York, and across potentially southern Canada here, just north of Toronto, but south of Ottawa, kind of in this little area. There could be snow, but also freezing rain, which is probably a bigger concern because of how much, how little of it takes to create some big travel impacts. Notice that throughout the night today, additional showers further south, but north of the border into Canada, there will be some snow that begins to develop. Again, we see a re-intensification of this cold front across the Northeast tomorrow in mid-Atlantic early morning, and that basically brings in more precipitation for Ohio, Pennsylvania, into Virginia, the Delaware area, Maryland, into northern North Carolina, West Virginia, and into Toronto. Do note though, once this thing reaches, again, probably just south of Ottawa, north of Toronto, into northern Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, this thing begins converting to snow. It could fall pretty darn heavily at times, especially as this thing is, pretty much converting straight heavy downpours with, again, the amount of moisture it has into snowfall. Again, so throughout the day on Wednesday, this could really be Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, you guys are going to be seeing rainfall, but to cities like Bangor, maybe Portland, Maine, initially at least starting off with a little bit of snow or just converting to snow towards the end. This only takes us through 30 hours, but you can see that even through that time frame, some of that snow is already going to be piling up, especially where it has, enough cold air to kind of start off as snow right away and not transition to GFS. By the time all things are said and done, shows, widespread amounts, 4 or 5 inches for even cities like Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec, again, Toronto, most likely not. Do note Caribou, Maine, Bangor, Maine, picking up some snow, New Hampshire, Vermont. Further south, not much. Do note, though, that into the weekend, as I was saying, there could be a little system that tries to redevelop and re-strengthen. The models were earlier showing something more significant. At this point, it just looks like scattered snow showers and rain showers, pretty much moving away by the weekend. And then southern areas of the Northeast could pick up a little bit of snow, potentially Saturday and Sunday, from a separate system, which you can see is shown right there. We'll have the details for you guys on that one. So again, total accumulated precipitation, still there's some way to go here. Not incredible rain. Definitely something that we'll have to, watch for, especially if there's already a lot of snow on the ground and that melting is going on. And again, maybe the total snowfall just being more impactful across these areas. Again, not as bad as, a week ago where we saw that Christmas system where, the amounts here were pretty incredible. This is going to be a lot more tame. Still, potentially up to, 4 or 5 inches, not out of the question. And yeah, let's move on to the southeastern United States, as this is yet another area that still isn't done with the system, and we'll see pretty much most of its impacts in the next few hours. So notice that through today, we do have those thunderstorms erupting across Mississippi right now and into Alabama. This will continue into Georgia. This will continue for at least through the day tomorrow. And if you look at the HER model, which shows us right now what's going on, you can see that we see these things moving out of Mississippi by tomorrow in the morning, 5, 6, but still in Alabama, and only moving out of Alabama by 8, 9 in the morning. Georgia, still seeing that rainfall by 10, 11, and you can see some of those storms are going to be, again, very heavy rainmakers and potentially severe producers. Florida getting in on that throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow. North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, also throughout most of the day tomorrow. However, by the time you get into early Thursday, this thing is pretty much mainly done. Maybe just some Florida seeing some additional storms. So the total accumulated precipitation still could be pretty heavy, especially across, maybe you could see according to this, the Georgia area and eastern, western South Carolina, southwestern North Carolina, southern, southeastern Tennessee, and then into Alabama and Mississippi as well. So again, not all areas will get heavy rain. Some won't see probably even any at all if you get missed by some of these storms. But, you know, you get cut under one of these little bands that's moving to the north and east. You could get in on a really, really healthy period of heavy rainfall for a very long time, and that could obviously cause some issues. Behind this system, it seems like there will be a general cooling trend. Again, nothing incredible, no incredible cold, just a little bit more into seasonable temperatures into Friday and Saturday before potentially another system starts brewing, and that brings in some more warmer air. Again, probably not seeing the same anomalies we've been seeing with this system though. But looking at the overall country into the long range, I know I have a lot of folks that are already wanting to look past this system, right? The system's been talked about for a while. The West, the Southwest, I've been talking about that for a while already. You guys are going to be seeing incredible patterns, storm after storm after storm. Elsewhere, more of a cool pattern. I wouldn't say compared to average though. Cool compared to what we've been seeing, which doesn't say much, as there's been pretty much a winter heat wave east of the Rockies, and you can see that no big systems seem to be brewing. There will be some smaller storms you could see maybe across the weekend here into Indiana, Ohio, and then into the Mid-Atlantic. Another one potentially to the Northeast next week. The cold air predominantly stays to the north. However, there are some signs that the GFS starts showing some sort of a more cold air invasion towards the middle of January. You can see maybe a snowstorm again diving a little bit further south there, and predominantly a cooler weather pattern. If you look at the GEFS ensembles, so models that go out, 400 hours plus every so often, every other day, no, every day, this is a good look at what basically could come, because it's not just one model, it's a bunch of them combined. And the most recent one still hasn't finished progressing, but it takes us out to hour 564, and you can see this is the 18th of 19th January, still probably warmer, but we do see some of that cooler starting to build across the Northwest. And if you look at a model run from just a few days ago, you can see it was even more aggressive with that cold air. So we'll have to wait and see. We might, be moving into a much cooler pattern and a lot of a different weather pattern into late January and February, or even mid-late January into early February. So we'll see. Again, winter's not over for many. It doesn't even feel like it started. But yeah, for now we just have this system, and I'll be probably making my next videos on some of these monsters that are hitting the West Coast in the next few days. For now though, that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.